journey. So he's assuming, and this is called husn al-dhann. It's having a good opinion of people. And it's one of the hallmarks of tasawwuf. And so he's beginning his book by already teaching you something about tasawwuf. He's saying, أَيُّهَا الْمُحِبَّ الصَّادِقِ بِمَحَبَّتِهِ. Oh, you who are sincere in your love. That's his assumption about the reader of his book. So he's already letting you know that this is, I'm practicing what I'm preaching. Because this science is based on husn al-dhann billah wa husn al-dhann bi'ibadillah. The good opinion of Allah and the good opinion of the servants of Allah. That's something that, and that's something that we've lost, our community. We often assume the worst about people. If somebody's late, the assumption is they could care less about the appointment. What the Prophet said, one of the hallmarks of believers, يَلْتَمِسَ الْمَعَاذِيرِ. They look for excuses for people. And the munafiq is always looking to find faults in people. So it's something central to belief is that people who believe have a good opinion of other people. Now, one of the things that in social sciences is that when you have expectations of people, they often will respond to your expectation. And I'll give you an example of that. There was a study done. They took a group of students that were all D students, and they put them in a class, and they told the teacher that these were the best students that they had last year. This was actually done in the U.S. And the teacher thought that they were all like GATE students, gifted children. That class ended up all becoming A students. Because the teacher's expectation was so high. And what often happens is when teachers look at students, how they behaved previously, they make the assumption, this is a C student. There's a kind of bell curve assumption about classes. Almost every teacher now, because the bell curve is such an idol in our culture. So there's an assumption that you're going to have a certain amount of A's, a certain amount of B's, a certain amount of C's, and a certain amount of D's, and a certain amount of F's. It's an assumption. And sure enough, every year, the tests and everything predict that. Now, when I took statistics at the university, I asked the professor, have they ever done a bell curve on the teachers to see if there were more A's in excellent teachers? You know, like, is the bell curve just confirming that C teachers have a majority of C students? So, and he said, yeah, that's a really good idea, you know, because people don't think of things from other dimensions. But generally what's found is excellent teachers often inspire students in classes. So they become better students because there's more motivation. And that's why having a good opinion of people is very important. There's a recent book that I think, this is something I've known intuitively and I've also known from the Sunnah, and I really believe in it, and it's the way I've tried to raise my children. But the book is called A Case Against Adolescence by Robert Epstein. And he's a psychiatrist, and what he did is he studied the phenomenon of adolescent rebellion. And in looking at the social sciences, what he found is in countries where there really isn't an adolescence, when people reach puberty, they begin to be treated like adults, they don't have the phenomenon of teenage rebellion. And so he's come up with a theory that Robert Ellis, who is a well-known, I don't particularly like his school of psychology, but he's very well respected in emotive behavioral therapy. He's a very well respected psychiatrist, but he said it was the most revolutionary book he'd ever read. And what this man is arguing is that the reason young people are rebelling is because they're still being treated like children. John Taylor Gatto told me about a group of students that were in Harlem, and these were the worst students in this school. And they came in, they were all antisocial, they rebellious, had no respect for the teacher. And so what this teacher did is he made a deal with the principal of the school that he would teach his class at the junior college. And so these high school students would go to junior college. And he told them, I'm putting you guys in college. John Taylor Gatto told me that their behavior, the change in these young people, just amazed this teacher. It was like an overnight, suddenly they wanted to behave like adults. They were in college. They didn't want to behave like punks anymore because they wanted to behave like the other college students. And so much of what's going on is just that assumption. If you expect these people to rebel and behave like children and you treat them with those assumptions, they respond in turn. Whereas if you have adult expectations of a 15-year-old, you'll be surprised. So there's so much in what we assume about other people. And that's why he's beginning this book like that. He is making the assumption that you are sincere in your love of God. It's it's beautiful.